Should they evacuate or not?
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear us, Sheriff?
I've got about 8 things going up here in command.
No problem.
The Cinco Ranch residents, we have initiated last night at the request of the Sheriff's Office a mandatory evacuation order. We realized when we did it, we were picking up some areas that were probably not going to get any water, but we had to get an order out so that to give law enforcement the powers to enforce. We had many unsafe activities carried on by individuals in the area that has water. We have, so the word I'm giving to citizens there's a mandatory order if you're in it, but your house is, there's no water in your neighborhood, there's no water in your street, your house is safe, stay there. Nobody is going to come make anybody leave dry ground to evacuate. But remember, if you leave,
that's Missouri
even to
Syndical
go get
Show.
a bottle of milk, you may have difficulty getting back in because law enforcement must enforce a mandatory evacuation order. They're not going to make you leave, but you might have difficulty getting back in. We're working right now, doing elevations, working with the Corps of Engineers to redraw the lines to narrow down the evacuation order. But until we know we can do that safely, the existing order stands.
Now, what did you mean when you, I don't know exactly your wording, but something like some unsafe activities are taking place there. What did you mean by that, Judge?
Well, I think Sheriff Nels could give you more examples, but the one that stood out in my mind was peace officers had to stand by while a gentleman loaded a very small boat, put his kids in it and his clothing, and motored out into deep water, going back to his house that had water up to the slab, if not higher. We don't know for what reason. They had no authority to stop him in a voluntary evacuation. People are free to come and go, but he said there were several incidents like that going on, and he had to protect people from their own actions. So I made it mandatory. I think it was in the interest of safety that we do that.
So in this mandatory evacuation, does that mean that the volunteers or someone else with a vote not going to be allowed in that area, or just suggested very strongly not to go back?
No, if they're citizens and they're doing work, they can explain that to the officer what they're doing, and they'll be allowed to carry on. But folks trying to enter the area are going to be asked their purpose, and if they're trying to go back home, they're not going to let them enter. They're going to turn them away because it's a mandatory evacuation area. That's why I'm trying to get the word out. If your home is safe and dry and the neighborhood's safe and dry, even though you're in the area, stay put. Nobody's going to make you leave.
Okay, Judge, I just want to clarify, if you could tell us, I'm looking at the list when this new mandatory evacuation came down, and it wasn't just Cinco Ranch, there were others added like Canyon Gate, Grand Lakes. Is that the same situation there possibly, or the other ones at risk of flooding from the Barker Reservoir?
Well, that is the difficulty we had up there. There is no general boundary. The majority of Cinco Ranch and the communities around it are not threatened by Barker Reservoir.
Okay.
But there are several hundred homes that are threatened by Barker Reservoir, so we had to define an area quickly that we could tell people they needed to leave, and we made it voluntary. But obviously, people started to abuse the voluntary nature, and the sheriff felt we needed to make it mandatory, and I concurred. But we're now doing the more refined analysis of the line. Since the water is very slowly going down in Barker, we can narrow that and still have a safety margin. So I suspect we've already done a small one, and we're pushing that out to media right now. I don't have that information in front of me. We've made a small revision and gotten some areas out of the mandatory evacuation area. We're working to further refine that, and hopefully in the next couple of hours we'll be able to remove even more. We're going to shrink that area as fast as we can get it down to the area that is actually threatened by water. But we had to run with what we had, given the nature of the threat. This isn't a rain threat. This isn't a river threat. This is a threat of backing up from drainage to Barker Reservoir. Reservoir. So it's very difficult to get your hands around that quickly. But they're working on it, and they think they have it under control, and I'm expecting to see a new graphic shortly that will further reduce the mandatory area. That's why I don't want people leaving it unless they really feel they need to.
Well, Judge Hebert, thank you so very much for joining